evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. With just 5 days before the election, Trump and Biden held rival rallies in Florida. Today, Biden held 2 rallies there, while Trump held 1 in Florida and 1 in North Carolina. UPS apparently finds what a Fox News talk show host called damning Biden-related documents. The delivery company says the paper's return is being arranged. Following several nights of unrest, Philadelphia is now dealing with the aftermath. Our reporter Kevin Hogan visited the city to give us an update. The U.S. economy saw record growth in the last quarter. We look at where the growth came from and what some of the headwinds are. And the Department of Justice just indicted a group for stealing U.S. trade secrets from the oil and gas industry. Among those charged, a Chinese energy company. Trump and Biden are making their final push, campaigning hard before Election Day. Both candidates held rallies in Florida, and Trump also visited North Carolina.
Florida is a well-known battleground state. In 2016, Trump won Florida by just 1.2 percentage points. Especially in the upcoming election, Florida is a key state to win the presidency. Both candidates visited the Sunshine State to make their last efforts to swing voters.
Our home state, Florida.
Right here in Florida. It's up to you.
In Florida, Biden held a drive-in rally in Broward County at the same time Trump held his rally in Tampa. President Trump arrived with First Lady Melania at around 2 p.m. Eastern Time and spoke for over an hour. Calling Florida her home state, the First Lady said the president protected fundamental family values, education, and the health and safety of the American people.
My husband's administration is focused on the future. Under Donald's leadership, we have blocked out the noise and focused on you, the American people.
The First Lady also thanked frontline workers for keeping the country's most vulnerable citizens safe during the pandemic, promising full support from the Trump administration. She said America is a country of hope, not a country of fear. President Donald Trump promised the country prosperity and a forward-looking attitude as he pledged to never lock down again.
Never going to lock down again. We locked down, we understood the disease, and now we're open for business, and that's what it is.
Biden arrived at around 2:30 p.m. and spoke for roughly 20 minutes. Biden said he wouldn't shut down the country. Instead, he would shut down the virus.
I've said it before. I'm not going to shut down the economy. I'm not going to shut down the country, but I'm going to shut down the virus.
Biden also criticized Trump for spreading the virus in his rallies and said Trump spread division and discord as well. Trump is scheduled to hold another rally in Fayetteville, North Carolina at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Biden is also scheduled to have another drive-in rally in Tampa tonight. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Delivery company UPS has confirmed that it has found documents related to the Bidens that a talk show host calls damning. This is hours after they said the documents were lost. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on the package.
On Wednesday night, Fox News' Tucker Carlson said the damning contents of a package related to the Biden family went missing. He says the package was mailed to him in Los Angeles and never arrived. The delivery company UPS told Business Insider in a statement that they were conducting an urgent investigation into the open package. But now, according to the same media company, UPS says they've been found. In a statement, UPS said, "After an extensive search, we have found the contents of the package and are arranging for its return." Carlson said on his show that they had initially received the Biden-related documents on Monday.
So on Monday of this week, we received from a source a collection of confidential documents related to the Biden family. We believe those documents are authentic, they're real, and they're damning.
Carlson hasn't publicly mentioned any other details about those documents, nor explained what makes them damning. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Glenn Greenwald, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, announced his resignation from The Intercept today. In a detailed post on Substack, he revealed the reason behind his departure. Greenwald tweeted that media censorship of ideas and information has seeped into his own company. Greenwald says the New York-based editors in the media outlet held his article from being published unless he removed sections of criticism on Joe Biden. He says they were all avid supporters of the Democratic candidate. The article he wrote questioned the Biden family's foreign connections and conduct. It was based on the recent evidence that's come out against the Biden family, including Hunter Biden's emails and voice messages concerning dealings with the Chinese regime and Ukraine. Greenwald was well known for his coverage of Edward Snowden. He co-founded The Intercept in 2013. And in Philadelphia, the looting and violence that has marred peaceful protests has apparently calmed down after an overnight curfew following the death of Walter Wallace on Monday. Wallace, a father of 8, was said to be struggling with mental health issues when he wielded a knife before being fatally shot by police. Our reporter Kevin Hogan brings us more on the aftermath in the city.
Look at them.
Wallace's death has left a community in need of healing and a city ravaged by unrest. About 50 officers were injured and over 170 people arrested in the riots that followed. The Wallace family set out a memorial for their son, and a young minister came out to pray for their family.
It's my duty, it's my task as a Christian believer and a runner in Christ, that to come out here and pray for one another, because we need it right now in our city. Our officers need it, our officials need it, the family needs it. They need it more than anything right now.
On Tuesday, hundreds of people swarmed a Walmart in the Port Richmond neighborhood. A man driving through the parking lot said a rioter shot a looter whose car was full of goods and drove off with it. It's just about midnight here in Philadelphia, where the city is under a curfew from 9 o'clock Wednesday night until Thursday morning. The National Guard has said it's on its way following the unrest over the last few days. From what we've seen, the streets are calm, unlike last night when a journalist was attacked while covering the looting at a Walmart.
So when I apologized and said, I'm sorry, they continued to grab me. One gentleman swung a fist to my face. Others began to punch my face. I took about a dozen hits to my body, face, jaw. I have a lot of cuts in my mouth and maybe a concussion. I haven't been able to get to see a medical professional.
The Blaze reporter Elijah Schaefer said he identified himself as a member of the press and told them he was just filming and not incriminating. But he said they continued to try to rob him, and it took the help of other journalists to escape. A reporter with him said a group of black men in the Walmart singled out Schaefer and attacked him.
Myself and another Hispanic reporter were doing the exact same thing, however we weren't targeted. And then later on in the night we have another reporter who is a friend of ours. He was also covering the scene in a different location, and again another white reporter, and he was targeted and he was actually chased out to 3 blocks. He had to run. He was chased out by a mob.
Schaefer said a man he presumed to be black did step in and try to de-escalate the situation. But he said he knew he was in a dangerous situation because he heard gunshots near the shopping center and people had knives and were beating each other.
And the reason why I say I believe I was targeted specifically for my skin color is because racial tensions are very high in this country. There are narratives that try to pit white people and black people against each other in this nation.
Reports show police found explosives in a van in Philadelphia's Center City neighborhood on Wednesday night. Police say they recovered torches, propane tanks, and possible sticks of dynamite. There is a community prayer in West Philadelphia for the Wallace family this Saturday. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, Philadelphia.
And our hearts go out to the Wallace family at this time. And in D.C., it's not just the virus they're worried about. Some businesses there are boarding up their stores to prepare for potential unrest on Election Day.
Near the White House, stores and office buildings boarded up doors and windows. Crews of workers also kept busy at multiple locations in the capital city, securing plywood boarding across storefronts. One of those stores is the luxury City 2 shopping center. It's just blocks away from the president's residence and adjacent Black Lives Matter plaza. Early voting is underway in Washington in an attempt to ease crowds on Election Day. Across the nation, more than 75 million people have already cast early in-person and mail ballots. That is a record-setting pace and more than 53% of the total 2016 turnout. Polls in battleground states that might decide the election suggest the race could be tight.
Election officials in many states around the country were warning voters that it's now too late to send their ballots by mail. They're urging voters to instead vote in person or cast them at official ballot drop-off boxes.
By now, it's well known that the country is not likely to have the final election results on November 3rd. This is because a number of states have extended deadlines for mail-in ballots past Election Day due to an unprecedented amount of mail-in ballots. The deadlines vary widely from state to state. California is allowing ballots to be received up to 17 days after the election, while Arizona and Florida require the ballots to be received by 7 p.m. on Election Day. And now, these states are among those saying it may be too late to vote by mail. State officials from Michigan, Arizona, Florida, Indiana, and Pennsylvania are urging their residents to no longer rely on the Postal Service and to drop off their ballots to make sure they are counted. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson said in a statement Tuesday, "We are too close to election, and the right to vote is too important to rely on the Postal Service to deliver absentee ballots on time." She said citizens who already have a ballot should sign the back of the envelope and hand deliver it to their city clerk's office or ballot drop box as soon as possible. Officials from the other states also made similar recommendations on Tuesday, saying it was the last recommended day to vote. An official in Indiana told the Indianapolis Star, "We should really put that sense of urgency on voters that they are running out of time." The U.S. Postal Service recommends mailing ballots at least 7 days before a state's deadline. According to the U.S. Elections Project, as of Tuesday, 44 million of the 88 million requested mail-in ballots have been submitted by mail. Grace Coulter, NTD News, New York.
The country is already on track for historic levels of voter turnout, and now young voter turnout is also breaking records. That's according to a new poll from Harvard University's Institute of Politics and Early Voting Data. Harvard's poll released on Monday found that 63% of 18 to 29-year-olds surveyed said they would definitely vote this election. That's compared to 47% in 2016, making it the highest proportion in the 20 years the poll has been conducted. And what's going on at the polls reflects Harvard's findings. So far, more than 6 million voters under 30 have already cast early ballots, compared to roughly 2 million early votes this time in 2016, according to the data firm TargetSmart. Young early voter turnout is especially notable in some of the most crucial battleground states, including Florida and Pennsylvania. The figures are also particularly dramatic in Texas, a state that has been known for low rates of overall voter participation. And while a number of pollsters and analysts say a majority of voters under 30 are left-leaning or support Democratic candidates, there has also been a surge of young conservatives. In what's looking like a tight election, this new wave of young voters could play a key role in determining the outcome. And the Department of Justice has indicted a group, including a Chinese energy company, for stealing American trade secrets. NTD's Christina Kim has more details.
A group of individuals and companies in the energy, oil, and gas industry are being charged with conspiracy and theft of trade secrets. A Chinese company called Jason Energy Technologies, or JET, and an American oil and gas affiliate called Jason Oil and Gas Equipment, or JOG, have been charged. Lei Gao is charged with conspiracy, theft of trade secrets, and attempted theft of trade secrets. Robert Erford Jr., who worked for a Houston area company, is also charged. According to a statement from the Department of Justice, Gao allegedly met with Erford at the Jason Oil and Gas offices in Houston, where Erford signed a consultancy agreement. At that meeting, Erford was given a letter from the JET general manager. The manager allegedly invited Erford to visit the Chinese company to have a technical exchange and discussion. On or about November 22, 2019, Erford allegedly transferred a victim company document that had a trade secret from the United States to China for JET's benefit. Around November 25th to 29th, 2019, Erford held meetings with Gao and JET officials where they allegedly discussed coil tubing technology, including victim company proprietary technology, practices, and procedures. The corporate entities could face up to a $5 million fine or 3 times the value of the stolen trade secret, whichever amount is greater. Gao faces a possible prison sentence of up to 10 years and a $250,000 fine, or twice the gross gain or loss. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Coming up, the MTA gives an update on how the agency is keeping New Yorkers from the virus as they commute. But officials stress the public transit system is still in dire need of federal aid. GOP members in California say they're optimistic ahead of this year's election. We spoke with some of them for their take on the deep blue state. That and more after the break. The Justice Department is investigating the potential miscounting of CCP virus deaths in nursing homes. A letter from the DOJ's Civil Division is seeking data from hundreds of private nursing homes in New York State. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has faced criticism for months over an executive order of his that sent recovering virus patients back into nursing homes. Critics say this order contributed to elderly patients' deaths at the height of the pandemic. The state's official count of 6,722 only includes patients who died on nursing home properties. It does not include those with the virus who left a care home and died in a hospital. The governor is claiming a low rate of death in nursing homes compared to other states. An Associated Press analysis from August is showing potential undercounting of the number of deaths by the thousands. Cuomo has repeatedly denied media and lawmakers access to relevant data. The spokesperson for the governor called the DOJ's latest request a distraction days before the election. And New York's MTA is boosting its virus safety measures and technological innovation. One thing they'd like to change is their financial situation. And the agency said a lack of federal funding means they're facing a fiscal tsunami.
In preparation for a potential second virus outbreak, the MTA announced it will be taking new measures and creating more policies. They're now giving voluntary COVID screening to their frontline employees at field locations and health facilities. The initiative is the first of its kind for the MTA.
Further, we continue our daily cleaning and disinfecting of stations, trains, buses, paratransit vehicles, and employee workspaces. Second, we initiated an aggressive flu immunization program at the beginning of this month. In the first 3 weeks of the program, several thousand employees have already received the shot, and our count already approaches last year's total.
The transit agency also reported they're close to reaching the 15 million mark for distributing free masks in its system. 10 million of them have gone to its workforce. But while the agency is making an effort to keep its system virus-free, they're still facing the problem of insufficient funds.
Ridership continues to be down significantly, affecting revenues. CFO Bob Foreign and his team are hard at work on the November financial plan, but without federal aid, the prognosis has changed. We face a 5-alarm fire and a fiscal tsunami.
The MTA said they will have no choice but to minimize their operations. According to the NYU Rudin Center for Transportation, a reduction in MTA service of up to 40% on subways and up to 50% on railroads would result in the loss of 450,000 employees by 2022. The agency would also have to increase fares.
It would be unspeakable for thousands of incredible MTA workers who have heroically kept the city moving throughout the pandemic, heroes moving heroes, for them to lose their jobs. Not to mention the terrible position any reduction in service creates for all our customers.
If the federal government gives $12 billion, the MTA could avoid a significant loss in GDP and in the number of employees. The board will be discussing their ticket price and policy review at the November and December board meetings this year.
A pro-Trump Honduran immigrant says he was attacked at Times Square during an event in support of the president. Now he's encouraging people to speak up against the violent opposition that's out to shut them down. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
It's really sad that even U.S. citizens born in the United States are afraid to say, I'm voting for Trump.
Dinek Martinez, a Honduran immigrant, was participating in pro-Trump events this weekend when he says he was attacked by either a member of Antifa or a Black Lives Matter activist. He says he was kicked to the ground after going to help a man who was attacked and was enraged by it.
No freedom socialism. Ask the Chinese people who came from there. Ask the Venezuelan. Ask the Cubans. Yes. Ask them. You're born in this country, lucky you. You don't know what the heck is that.
In his view, Dynick says Antifa members and BLM activists are basically doing what socialist communist regimes do when the country's people don't agree with it. Shut them down.
On those countries, like, you got no freedom, you cannot speak your mind. If you speak against the president, you may end up in jail. You speak more strongly, they can kill you or can kill your family. Antifa and BLM basically are promoting that. Like, you are with them or you are against them.
There were other moments that day where people showing support for Trump were attacked. What appears to be eggs and paint were thrown at them. Dynick, who says he's a trans and atheist, says the LGBT community, atheists, and immigrants need to stand together against communism and socialism. He says he doesn't know who attacked him because the suspect was disguised, but he has filed a police report. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
Despite the deep blue sentiment in California, this year the GOP is optimistic for the state. We spoke with the vice chairman of the California Republican Party and 2 Republican congressional candidates to get their take on the upcoming election.
California has traditionally favored Democratic Party presidential nominees since the 1990s, but the vice chair of the California Republican Party is optimistic that this year more people in his state will shift towards Trump and the Republican Party.
So this year, we gather a lot more volunteers as we have in the past. 2016, we have, if I say, okay, we're going to have a rally for Donald Trump, maybe, 30 people show up, right? But this time, any rally that we call for, easily 100 people will show up. That's a 300% increase.
Kuo also commented on the congressional races this year, pointing to the Republican victory in California's 25th district this March as an indicator of growing support for the party.
In May, when we have a special election for Congress in South, in Orange County, I believe, Mike Garcia has beat out Christy Smith. And that is the first victory that we have, even in California, after the complete wipeout of 2018.
At a pro-Trump event in Redondo Beach, California last weekend, we spoke with James P. Bradley, the Republican candidate running against Democrat incumbent Ted Lieu in California's 33rd Congressional District, and Joe Collins, the Republican candidate running against Democrat incumbent Maxine Waters in California's 43rd Congressional District. Here's what they had to say about this year's election.
What we've seen in this last 3 months, Beverly Hills, Redondo Beach, throughout the state of California about Recall Newsom, I've seen such a support and an underswell growth of people wanting to turn our great state red again.
It's going to be an exciting election. We have a lot of great candidates that are running for office right now. I think it'll be a good thing to have some balance back in the state of California, get some policies that are actually going to benefit the people instead of take our money through taxes.
Republicans currently control 197 seats in the House, and it has to gain at least 21 additional seats to reach the 218-seat threshold needed for a majority.
Coming up, U.S. Customs officials seized counterfeit goods worth millions in Los Angeles. The shipment came from China. The goods included pills and apparel. And during one of China's key political meetings, a strange phenomenon. 2 suns appeared in the sky. Find out what that could mean and more when we return. U.S. Customs officials seized a cargo shipment from China. It included fake pills and goods worth millions. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
U.S. Customs officials seized millions of dollars of fake goods from China in Los Angeles. Customs and Border Protection officials said in a statement the counterfeit goods were worth over $3.5 million. The Los Angeles Police Department is now investigating the seized merchandise. Customs agents seized over 31,000 fake goods last month at the Los Angeles Long Beach port. Among the items were 25,000 counterfeit Viagra pills and over 5,000 items of footwear and apparel with the logos of Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Versace, and Nike, among others. All the goods came in a cargo shipment from China. The director of Los Angeles CBP Field Operations said in a statement counterfeit goods damage the American economy, adding the goods can threaten the health and safety of consumers. He recommends consumers only buy from legitimate sources to protect themselves. He said by buying fake goods, consumers are often giving money to transnational criminal organizations. Counterfeit goods flooding the American market isn't new. The FBI issued a report in August this year detailing how China costs the U.S. $200 to $600 billion annually in stolen trade secrets, counterfeit goods, and pirated software. The Philippines is building up their own fleet to counter the growing Chinese threat in the region. The Philippines Foreign Affairs Secretary said they were building their own fleet to swarm all over the place in the South China Sea. He made the comments at an online discussion on Monday held by Asia Society. The strategy for flooding the sea with vessels is to increase the likelihood of one of the military vessels getting hit in the highly disputed waters. Such an accident would trigger the Philippines' defense treaty with the U.S. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said last year any armed attack on Philippine forces, aircraft, or public vessels in the South China Sea would trigger mutual defense obligations under the treaty. The Philippine Navy Chief Vice Admiral announced plans on Monday to deploy a fleet of over 200 armed militia to patrol the South China Sea region. The Philippines' top diplomat, however, added on Monday the country aims to maintain good relations with both the U.S. and China. During the CCP 5th plenary session in Beijing, unusual things happened. In the northern Chinese city Shijiazhuang, people witnessed two suns in the sky Wednesday morning. A video circulating online seemed to show two suns of different sizes in the sky at around 9 a.m. local time. Scientists say it's an atmospheric optical phenomenon. They call it a sundog, referring to a concentrated patch of sunlight, occasionally seen about 22 degrees to the left or right of the sun. However, many Chinese people believe that it's a sign of a new era coming, according to Chinese traditional culture. A master of Dao school, Li Chunfeng, lived 1,400 years ago. His prophecy book is proven to be one of the most accurate in history. He once wrote, "When two suns appear together, subordinate warlords will conspire a destruction. There will be wars, and the one against the law will be eliminated."
China's top leadership concluded one of the key meetings of the year today, but one of the highlights of the meeting is raising alarm. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
On Thursday, China wrapped up one of the most important political meetings of the year, the 5th plenary session. The meeting would usually highlight party leaders' top goals, and this year, one of them is raising eyebrows. The goal in question is a 15-year plan called Vision 2035. On the surface, it's Chinese leader Xi Jinping's vision for what the country would achieve in 2035. But for many China watchers, it sounds like a signal of Xi's emperor dream. Ben Hillman, a political scientist at Australian National University, told the BBC that the plan has prompted speculation that Xi intends to lead China through this period, becoming essentially president for life. Theoretically speaking, Xi's term as China's leader ends in 2022, and according to party traditions, he would appoint the successor in this meeting. But this year, no successor was named. Also, under communist rule, China still has remnants of a planned economy. So it's typical for party leaders to draft a plan every 5 years, which they did. But a 15-year plan is really rare, even for Communist Party officials. Also, the plan comes at a time when China is facing ever-increasing uncertainties. With a battered economy and the pandemic, a 15-year plan seems highly optimistic. But Xi's plan may have been long in the making. China's law used to limit the leader to 2 terms, but in 2018, Xi removed the limit, which technically allows him to stay in power as long as he wishes. Juliet Song, NTD News.
Still to come, the latest data shows the U.S. economy bounced back at a record rate in the 3rd quarter. That's as lockdown measures are lifted and businesses reopen. And demand for pantry items has soared over the past few weeks. Are we in for a second wave of food stockpiling? And is the industry ready this time? Find out more after the break. GDP numbers are out and the American economy grew at a record rate in the third quarter. Not surprising as businesses reopened in the third quarter after being locked down in the second. Here's the details.
The Commerce Department says the U.S. economy expanded by 33.1% in the third quarter, setting a new historic record. The U.S. economy has now regained around two-thirds of the economic output lost due to the pandemic. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow hailed the record number, saying it exceeded all expectations. The Trump campaign called the big number a validation of President Trump's policies, which create jobs and opportunities for Americans in every corner of the country. Still, while the economy recovered a large portion of outbreak-related losses, it still remains below pre-pandemic levels. In a separate report, the Labor Department said there are still some 22.6 million Americans receiving some form of unemployment compensation in the week ending October 10th. By comparison, there were around 1.4 million in the comparable week last year. Despite the strong third quarter GDP number, the economy continues to face difficulties, including resurging cases of the CCP virus. The Commerce Department also announced that disposable personal income fell by nearly $637 billion in the third quarter, or 13.2%, after surging by over 44% in the second quarter, driven by historic levels of federal stimulus. This suggests a possible drag on consumer spending, which is a major driver of the economy.
A second wave of food stockpiling is here. Demand for pantry items is up. One e-commerce expert says they've seen drastic increases in the past 3 weeks or 4 weeks, similar to the stockpiling we saw during the first wave of the pandemic. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
American consumers are starting to stockpile food again. Web traffic stats show that demand for baking products was up 3,400% in October compared to the same period last year. We spoke to a web traffic's insight company to see what else they found.
We've seen that similar sort of large increase, 1,000+% increase, but now we're seeing it both across different categories within the supermarket as well as other retail verticals.
Americans are stocking up in part because of the holidays and possible increases in virus cases. They say food makers are more prepared this time.
A lot of the problems that plague companies like Instacart and grocery delivery services that couldn't fulfill that new demand, they've quelled a lot of that. They've added an incredible amount of labor as well as a lot of retail chains.
He says the fourth quarter sales are critical to a lot of businesses. For food, he says that there is going to be less choice, but availability of core essential products should be better than at the height of the pandemic in April.
So as a consumer, you might notice this holiday season some differences in some fringe sort of items, but hopefully a little bit less of the mass out of stocks.
He says food maker General Mills has invested tens of millions of dollars in their facilities just to keep up. The company says it doesn't expect its inventories to normalize until next June. Until then, they expect demand to fluctuate. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And some updates on American corporates. Grubhub is being sued for allegedly adding thousands of restaurants to its website without the owner's permission. If somebody ordered from that restaurant, the delivery guy would just turn up and place the order themselves. You might think, well, isn't that extra business for the restaurants? But the suit claims Grubhub using their names, logos, and menus unlawfully. NTD's Phil Zoe spoke to one of the restaurant owners leading the lawsuit.
2 restaurant owners in California and North Carolina are suing Grubhub for allegedly adding 150,000 restaurants to its database without permission. One of the restaurant owners leading the lawsuit told NTD News Grubhub is getting around this by telling its delivery guys to order directly from the restaurants. Afterwards, they pick up the orders pretending to be customers.
They call up as a customer, they order as a customer, and then they show up, picking up as a customer. Now, you know that it's Grubhub because they have a big, hot bag a lot of times that says Grubhub on it.
Pearson says the biggest problem is being misrepresented by someone you didn't even hire. He called the food delivery app multiple times to get his menu off the site, but Grubhub wouldn't do it.
Every single order that goes out is unbelievably important to me. And I don't want to be represented by somebody that doesn't have my best interest in mind. And in essence, Grubhub does not have my best interest in mind. They have Grubhub's best interest in mind.
He says Grubhub never approached him for a partnership in the first place, but even if they did, he would pass. He doesn't understand why any restaurant would. The fees are too high.
From what I understand, they want 30% of the cost of the order in order to be partnered with them. The average profit for a restaurant is about 5% of gross sales. So to give up 30% of an order is sort of usurious and slanted towards Grubhub. A restaurant can't survive if they only make 70% of what they charge.
The lawsuit was filed on Monday. Pearson says he wants Grubhub to leave his mom and pop business alone. He says it's tough enough for his business to survive because of the pandemic. Phil Zhou, NTD News.
Grubhub told us it doesn't comment on pending lawsuits, but it did point us to an article on Eater. That article says other delivery apps like DoorDash and Postmates have also gotten in trouble in the past for adding restaurants without permission. And up next, a second beheading in France this month. 3 people were killed, including a church warden. President Macron vows France will not give up its taste for freedom. And in order to get the second wave of COVID-19 under control, Germany and France will go back into lockdown. Find out more after the break. Over to Europe. While France is still reeling from the beheading of a teacher for showing pupils cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, there's been another attack happened and 3 people lost their lives. NTD UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Thanks. Welcome to the UK newsroom with UK and European news. 3 people are dead in a suspected terrorist attack in the southeast French city of Nice.
Visiting the site, French President Emmanuel Macron says France was attacked over its values and taste for freedom.
Let me say this very clearly again. We will never give in.
The attack was at Notre Dame Church. One victim is the church warden. Nice's mayor describes the attack as terrorism.
Today, we are paying too high a price. And once again, we are the victim of Islamofascism.
France's security alert is raised to its highest level. More soldiers are deployed to protect key sites such as places of worship and schools.
And French and German citizens are coming to terms with impending nationwide lockdowns as the governments of both countries take action to get the second European wave of COVID-19 under control. David Vivers and Christian Watchen bring us the details.
France is going back into a nationwide lockdown. It hopes to contain COVID-19 infections that are threatening to spiral out of control. On Tuesday, France reported 523 COVID-19 deaths over 24 hours, the highest daily toll since April. Doctors warned intensive care units risk becoming overwhelmed. The new measures echo the 8-week lockdown France enforced in the spring, when hospitalizations and deaths caused by the pandemic reached a peak.
Like in the spring, you will be able to leave your house only to work, for a medical appointment, to provide assistance to a relative, to shop for essential goods or to get some air near your house.
In the words of President Macron, the lockdown is the only solution for the pandemic. In his speech, he said that he would choose to save lives no matter the costs. The problem is that many businesses will be forced to close. They have been hit by waves of measures, one after the other, such as lockdown, curfews, restrictions to welcome the public, so this new lockdown seems to be the fatal blow for them. According to the head of the Union of Business CEOs, the new lockdown means France's economy will not only be in a 10% GDP recession, it will collapse in the following months. So even though the parliament voted to support the lockdown's measure, it remains to see how the population will react to this new lockdown. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News.
On Wednesday, the German government decided on a partial lockdown in hopes of slowing down CCP virus infection rates. For 1 month starting November 2nd, restaurants, bars, theatres and gyms will shut. Schools, childcare centres and shops will remain open, but under stricter hygiene rules.
The measures that we have to implement are appropriate, necessary and proportionate. There is no other milder approach than strictly reducing personal contact.
Gatherings will be limited to 10 people from a maximum of 2 households.
Intensive care doctors welcome the lockdown. Although 1/3 of all intensive care units are currently available, the doctors say as cases keep rising, they worry there won't be enough healthcare staff.
Several opposition parties criticised that Parliament was not involved in the decision.
Such
decision-making not only jeopardizes the acceptance of corona measures, they also contain considerable legal risks and threaten to deform our parliamentary democracy.
Owners of restaurants and bars are expected to be hit hard. Some fear going bankrupt.
I am totally annoyed that this is not a sustainable strategy. It's just a desire to be seen to be doing something on the part of the government.
Many observers are concerned that without a long-term strategy, cases will go up again, possibly leading to another lockdown. Reporting by Christian Watchen, NTD News, Berlin.
And in the UK, a dementia support group is taking legal action against the UK government. They say pandemic measures contributed to a rise in dementia deaths. Our UK correspondent Jane Werrell has the story.
Family members are analogous to medication, really, or to therapy for someone with dementia.
John's Campaign, a dementia support group, says government guidelines amount to blanket bans on care home visits in high-risk areas and is unlawful. They argue the ban contributed to the 52.2% increase in deaths from dementia and Alzheimer's, the largest increase in non-COVID related deaths between March and May.
They've been treated just as a vulnerable mass of people who have no say, no agency over their own lives. Family members need to be treated as essential, which they are.
Sasha Hoare said she noticed her mother deteriorate after not seeing her for 14 weeks.
She was so withdrawn, she could barely make eye contact and she could barely converse. We tried to do video calls and that was just not at all effective with our mum. She just couldn't really get to grips with it.
A UK Department of Health spokesperson said in an email that their first priority is preventing infections and protecting the lives of vulnerable residents. Najra Ahmed, representing independent care homes, says there needs to be testing so family members can support their relatives safely in person.
Nothing will replace that one-to-one touch, that care that you get from somebody coming in to visit you. And I think that's what's being eroded, and that's for every citizen.
The Care Minister this month said she wants to enable safe visits to care homes through a pilot scheme. Nikki, who works on John's Campaign in her spare time, says she feels she's speaking for thousands of people in care homes and their families who don't have a voice. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Back to New York.
Thanks, Neil. And up next, big wave season is open in Portugal. Professional surfers are taking advantage of gigantic waves taller than multi-story buildings. And how would you like to have a flying car and actually be able to use it around town? We visit one region where it's a reality. More on that when we return. A Dutch company says its flying car is now street legal in Europe. It plans to begin deliveries of two-seater aircraft in 2022.
Dutch company Palv says its Liberty flying car has been approved for use on roads in the European Union. Certification included brake, emissions, and noise pollution testing.
Road and air regulations, they have never been built together to apply to one vehicle. So making this jigsaw puzzle where you can fit both regulations is a very, very big puzzle, which in the end ends up with about 5,000 requirements.
The Palv Liberty is a three-wheeled, two-seater car and gyroplane combined into one. Pilots will need a license to fly one. It claims to drive at up to 100 miles per hour, fly up to 110 miles per hour, and can fly about 310 miles on a single tank of fuel. Switching from road to aircraft mode takes about 10 minutes.
The industry of personal flying is really starting now with fly driving products, which makes flying much more handy and useful. And there are other segments to come.
According to the company, that includes performing the necessary checks. The firm's founder and CEO says the first 90 limited edition versions will be priced at around $585,000 when they begin shipping in 2022. After that, standard versions will start from about $468,000.
A Portuguese town known for its massive waves regularly attracts surfers and visitors from all around the world. Now, today, the conditions were once again in place for big wave surfing.
Big wave season is open, and professional surfers are taking advantage of gigantic waves. They rode waves higher than multi-story buildings off the coast of Portugal on Thursday. Former storm Epsilon created a massive North Atlantic swell, which made for some of the biggest waves recorded in the coastal town of Nazaré. The town is world famous for its big waves. Every year, surfers and spectators travel to Nazaré to enjoy the spectacle. The world record for the highest wave ever surfed was made there in 2017. A Brazilian man surfed a wave that was 80 feet high. The reason for Nazaré's extremely high waves is an underwater canyon which lies close to the coast. The combination of the canyon and special local currents creates the huge walls of water. The underwater canyon reaches a depth greater than 16,000 feet. Hundreds of mask-wearing spectators gather to watch surfers attempt to tame the waters in the famous location.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.